myself Dr. Deepshikha Dave, MD Pathology, and today we will be discussing about practical aspects of breast. So first of all, a briefing about the blood supply. So we all know axillary artery gives two main branches, that is the lateral thoracic artery and the internal thoracic artery. So this is how the blood supply of breast happens. Then breast is a piece of basically fatty tissue with glandular tissue resting upon the pectoralis major and serratus anterior muscles. Now the lymphatic drainage. So why are lymphatic drainage important? Because usually when we are taking into consideration carcinoma of breast, so these are the basic axillary tissue or the lymphatic tissue which is involved. So there are three main basically types. So one is the axillary tissue, that means the axillary lymphatic drainage. Then there is internal mammary. Then there are supraclavicular lymph nodes which are involved. So first of all, a look into what is a lobe. So breast is basically composed of lobes. So a large area of glandular tissue, breast basically divided in, is called as lobe. Now what is a lobule? A large lobe basically is divided into small lobules. So these are basically a collection of acini. What are acini then? Acini or the acinus is the smallest part of a lobule. So basically the main secretory component of the breast which give rise to the production of milk is basically an acinus, and the plural is known as an acini. So what does a single acinus constitute of? It composed of two types of cells. First one is the epithelial cells and the second one are the myoepithelial cells. So basically the secretions are formed by the epithelial cells and the myoepithelial cells helps in the ejection of this milk product. Now there are three normal phases of breast. Whenever the breast is active, that means it usually has a 50 to 50 gland to stroma ratio. The normal lactating breast, that means after the delivery of a child, most of the glands are looking like thyroid. So there is a high glandular component and less stroma in a lactating breast. Then comes the atrophic phase. Atrophic phase, there is mostly stroma because there is no production of milk, and that's why the glandular tissue undergoes atrophy. Now here's a view of how does a lobule looks like. So this is basically a large lobe which is consisting of 5 lobules. So can you see these lobules are small clusters of many acini humbled up together. So what you are seeing here within the lobule, we can see that there is a stroma which is having a light pinkish to blue tinge. So this type of stroma is basically the intralobular stroma. Then there is presence of another stroma which is surrounding all these lobules, which is known as extralobular stroma. So basically these two stroma differs in their consistency. The one which is having a myxoid tinge to it, that means having a typical bluish tint to it, is basically intralobular, and the extralobular one is more of a fibrous kind and therefore is having more pinkish texture. Histology, as we have already known, lobes, there are 10 in whole breast. Lobules, there are many lobules per lobe. Acinus, plural acini, also known as alveolus or alveoli, many per lobule. And ducts, ducts are intra or interlobular leading to lactiferous ducts near the nipple. Now breast pathology is basically divided into 4 main types: developmental, degeneration, inflammation and neoplasm. So first of all, we'll have a look at the neoplastic one, because this is most commonly asked in your exams. So first, gross specimen. So what are the gross specimen that you should know are those of breast carcinoma and fibroadenoma. These are asked in your exams. And histopathology slides that you should know, undergraduate should know, are the fibroadenoma intracanalicular type, pericanalicular type pattern, then phyllodes tumor, then carcinoma breast which is invasive ductal carcinoma, and carcinoma breast which is invasive lobular carcinoma. First of all, we'll have a look at fibroadenoma. So what is fibroadenoma? It is a benign lesion or a benign neoplasm which is solitary, that means single. It occurs at all ages, commonly seen in younger females, especially when they are in their teenage. Gross, size is small up to 3 centimeters. Site is upper outer quadrant mostly, but it can happen anywhere. It is well circumscribed lesion. there is a presence of pseudocapsule of connective tissue which is compressed at the periphery, and hence it is known as pseudocapsule and not the true capsule. Consistency is firm to rubbery, mobile. It is so mobile that it is known as a breast mouse, and that's why many a times you cannot discern in which exact quadrant it is present. Cut section is solid grayish white mass with whorled pattern, and usually it is without necrosis. What is microscopic point of view of this? It is classified into two major types, pericanalicular and intracanalicular. So why these two patterns are important for UG point of view? Because you have to identify these lines, or else it doesn't make any difference in clinical practice. Pericanalicular, the epithelial component takes the form of rounded ducts that remain embedded, small and undistorted within the stroma, and these are arranged in the symmetrical manner. Intracanalicular in type, stroma compresses the ducts in a slit-like pattern, and therefore it appears as cords of epithelial elements surrounding the mass of fibrous tissue. So fibroadenoma is extremely well defined. It affects younger women, always benign, can fibrose or calcify with age. So this is the gross of a fibroadenoma. Can you see here? These borders are basically well demarcated and round. You cannot identify the capsule here, but if you look in the microscope, you will be able to find a pseudocapsule or the compressed area around this. Now it has a very glistening surface and whitish in color, grayish white as we use for all the neoplasms. This is how the microscopic view of fibroadenoma looks like. Can you see there are glands? So these are round glands here. So this is pericanalicular type of fibroadenoma, and this part is the stroma. Can you see there are these identifiable round structures, identifiable in the gross also. These are basically these areas. Now fibroadenoma intracanalicular type, can you see these are the compressed cords. So here you won't be able to find the lumina within the glandular component, and this pale area is the stroma that is compressing these glandular components. Now Fallot's tumor. Now Fallot's tumor, basically age is 30 to 70 years. It is similar to fibroadenoma in having both the epithelial and the stromal components. However, the stromal component is more prominent. The stroma thus bulges into the lumen of the duct and give rise to a characteristic leaf-like pattern. It is asked in your exams, which tumor give rise to a characteristic leaf-like pattern. It is also asked in your MCQs. These tumors have a tendency to recur locally after excision, but they are benign. So basically Fallot's tumor can be divided into two parts. It can be benign Fallot's tumor, it can be malignant Fallot's tumor. Generally it is benign, but when the malignancy arises in it, it is known as cystosarcoma Fallot's or the malignant Fallot's tumor. So how does a Fallot's look like? Gross appearance, it is usually very huge, 10 to 15 centimeters, not less than that. Bosselated surface, not fully encapsulated tumors. Cut section is grey-white again. Cystic cavities are identified. Areas of hemorrhage, necrosis are present in this. And this is a differentiating point in case it is small from a fibroadenoma. Microscopically composed of hypercellular stroma accompanied by proliferation of benign ductal structures. So this is how the gross Fallot's look like. Can you see the whole breast is enlarged, and it is so huge that you can actually find it like a hypertrophy. You can see there is a huge breast on the unilateral side. When you will cut it, then you will be able to identify the areas of hemorrhage and necrosis that you are seeing over here. Can you see? So these crevices or clefts are visible in the gross. Now this is the microscopy of Fallot's tumor. Can you see there are glandular components? So the blue ones are the glandular components. This is the glandular area, this is the luminal area of the gland, and this whole area is the stroma. So basically the glandular component is less and the stroma is more. Again, can you see this is the characteristic leaf-like pattern that we say in Fallot's tumor. Can you see this? So basically there is bulging in of the stroma within these glandular elements, and that's why it gives rise to a typical leaf-like architecture. Now here can you see these areas? These are basically the leaf-like areas seen in Phyllodes tumor, which is basically due to the protrusion of stroma within these glandular elements. Now, the next topic is breast cancer. So, carcinoma of the breast, most common malignancy of breast. Risk factors are age. 70% of the cases occur in more than 50 years of age. But nowadays, no age is bar. Even 30 years of female can be seen carrying carcinoma of breast. Age at menarche has an influence in it. Younger than 11 years, if there is menarche, there is 20% increase in the risk. If there is a family history of breast carcinomas, then such people tend to suffer from breast carcinoma at earlier ages, like I said in 28, 30s. Estrogen excess as postmenopausal hormone replacement therapy is a risk factor. Radiation exposure, carcinoma of contralateral breast or endometrium are again hyperestrogenic states which also give rise to breast carcinoma. Obesity, breastfeeding reduces the incidence of breast carcinoma. So the multipara who are in the feeding cycle for a large area of their life will be having less risk of having carcinoma breast. Tobacco, alcohol and organochlorine pesticides also give rise to increased risk of CA breast. Now the symptoms of breast carcinoma. There is a lump, and that's why we say all the women should be checking their breast lumps at their home. Lump or mass in the armpit, that means if in case the metastasis has already occurred, there will be a mass in the armpit. A discharge from the nipple area, any bleeding or weeping. What is a bleeding? There is basically obvious blood from the nipple, then it is known as bleeding. And weeping is basically serous discharge. Hardening of the skin in the nipple or areola region. Inversion of the nipple turning inwards or at an unusual angle. Change in the sensation of the nipple. Breast pain. Usually breast pain accompanies the benign processes, but sometimes when there is inflammatory breast carcinoma, then in such cases breast pain will be there. Weight loss, bone pain in cases of bony metastasis, breast enlargement only on one side, and changes in the areola. So, breast cancer, basically invasive breast carcinoma. So, these are divided into 4 categories. First one is the Paget's disease of nipple. Second is the invasive ductal carcinoma, which is again divided into specific types. So the adenocarcinoma with productive fibrosis is also known as serous type, simplex type, or no special type. So 80% of the cases of breast carcinoma are no special type. Second, in the special type category, we will again have nomenclature which is known as medullary carcinoma, mucinous carcinoma, papillary carcinoma, tubular carcinoma, then invasive lobular carcinoma. So, invasive ductal carcinoma and invasive lobular carcinoma are basically 2 different carcinomas according to the origin of their cells. And the last one comes the rare carcinomas, that is adenoid cystic type, squamous cell type, or the apocrine carcinoma. So, first of all, we'll discuss about invasive ductal carcinoma breast. So, IDC, gross, firm to hard, irregular borders, gritty feeling on cutting. At some places, foci of calcification are seen. Microscopically, anaplastic tumor cells forming solid nests and pods. There is absence of myoepithelial cells there, which is a hallmark of carcinoma breast. Pleomorphic cells with high NC ratio, hyperchromatic nuclei, prominent nuclei, which is a feature of malignancy. Infiltration into the fibrous stroma and fat, as well as the lymphatic and vascular invasion, which are basically the diagnostic criteria of naming it as a malignancy. Presence of in situ component. Comedonecrosis is also one of the important findings which is seen in ductal carcinoma in situ, also known as DCIS. So this is how the gross of IDC looks like. Can you see these creeping areas? What you are seeing here is a crab-like appearance. These borders are not round or smooth, and these are creeping inside the fatty tissue of breast. So this is basically how carcinoma looks like in a gross. Grayish-white appearance, firm in consistency. This is a histological picture of IDC. Now what you are seeing here in these round lobules are basically the in situ component. Can you see the cribriform architecture? What is a cribriform architecture? It is basically the cookie cutter appearance. So what you are seeing here is the in situ component, which is also known as DCIS. And what you are seeing here in this lower area are the cords. Can you see these cords? These are basically the infiltrating component. Now the hypoview, can you see? In this case, you can see there are glandular formation as well as there is presence of cords. So this is how the infiltration occurs within the stroma of breast, and these cords are basically surrounded by lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate, which is basically the immune response of the body to delimit the tumor. Now what you are seeing is the high power view of an IDC. Can you see that there is an isonucleosis? What is an isonucleosis? That means that the nuclei differ or varies in shape and size. What you are seeing here is the prominent nucleoli. Can you appreciate them? These prominent nucleoli again point to the feature that malignancy is basically there. Now, this is how the IDC looks like in microscope. Now, invasive breast carcinoma, Paget's disease of the nipple. So what is basically Paget's disease of the nipple? It is a chronic eczematous eruptions of the nipple progressing to weeping ulcerating lesions. These are usually associated with ductal carcinoma in situ and early invasive carcinomas. So that's why if you are able to identify Paget's disease of nipple, the patient has high probability of surviving from an ongoing carcinoma. So these Paget cells are basically found in the rete pegs of epithelium, and this is diagnostic, histologically. Treatment, again, lumpectomy can be done, simple mastectomy can be done, or modified radical mastectomy, depending on what other things are present along with this. So what you are seeing here is a gross finding. How does it looks like over the breast? It is an eczematous or a weeping ulcerating lesion, which is basically red, tender, and having a serosanguinous kind of discharge over the skin. This is how the histology of Paget's is seen. This will be, this image can be asked in your exams, in your pre-PG examinations. So what you see here, can you see these pale looking cells within the epithelium? So basically, these pale looking cells have come over from an in situ component traveling via the large lactiferous ducts into the skin of the breast and finally reached here. So that's why when it is associated with the DCIS, there is good prognosis. When it is associated with an infiltrating ductal carcinoma, the prognosis is similar to IDC. Now, something about pudgy orange appearance. So what is pudgy orange appearance? Basically, when the lymphatics of the breast are basically studded or completely occluded by the breast carcinoma cells, it gives rise to the retention of lymphatic edema within the breast. And this gives rise to a typical look which is known as pudgy orange because it resembles the peel of an orange or the orange skin appearance. Now, invasive lobular carcinoma. Gross, firm to hard, irregular margin, diffuse pattern of invasion is present. More frequently, these tumors are bilateral and multicentric. And that's why when you are handling over a pathology report or a HPE report to a patient, you should be very much sure whether you are dealing with an invasive lobular carcinoma, and more so when there is an invasive lobular carcinoma component associated with an IDC. You have to mention it because in such cases, these tumors are frequently bilateral and multicentric. Small uniform tumor cells growing singly in characteristic Indian file pattern. This Indian file pattern is seen in invasive lobular carcinoma or ILC. It is asked in your exams as well as in MCQ. These tumors basically metastasize to peritoneum, retroperitoneum, leptomeninges, GI tract, ovaries, and uterus. So this is how a lobular carcinoma looks like. So gross appearance, it will be hard to differentiate an IDC from an ILC, and that's why you need to have a closer look at the cells when you're doing a histopathological examination or microscopic examination. So can you see this layering of cells one after one another? This, like as if they are standing in a queue. So this pattern is known as Indian file pattern. Now something about medullary carcinoma. Again, medullary carcinoma is a specific type of IDC and not ILC. Okay. Grossly, why we need to know about medullary carcinoma? Because these are basically high-grade carcinomas, but they have a well-circumscribed border. So since they are well circumscribed and if they are properly treated, they have a comparatively better prognosis. So they are soft, fleshy in consistency, well circumscribed, Microscopically, they are poorly differentiated tumors, solid syncytial-like pattern with large sheets of large cells with vesicular pleomorphic nuclei, prominent nucleoli, and frequent mitotic activity. Moderate to mild lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate usually surrounds these tumors, and it is also seen within the tumor. So these tumors basically have a pushing borders or the non-infiltrative borders, and that's why these need to mention as a specific type of IDC. In such cases, lymphatic or vascular invasion is not seen, and these tumors are usually HER2 positive, so that's why we usually have a good prognosis. So medullary carcinoma, when you see the syncytial type of arrangement, you cannot see any of the acini within these. These are basically the solid sheet pattern, what you say. Again, the cells are having high anisonucleosis, marked pleomorphism. They are basically high grade, having many mitosis here and there. So mitotically very active, and have a border of lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate and rounded borders. Now mucinous colloid carcinoma. Mucinous carcinoma is also known as colloid carcinoma because there is large amount of extracellular mucin within these tumors, and that's why again these tumors are well circumscribed mass, and these are having the excellent prognosis. These are usually seen in older women. They grow slowly. These are well circumscribed masses, extremely soft gelatin-like consistency. Why? Because there is large amount of extracellular mucin, and that's why they have gelatin-like appearance also in gross. Microscopically, the tumor cells are seen as clusters and small islands of cells within large lakes of mucin that push into the adjacent stroma. Now what you see here is these are the lakes or the pools of mucin. Can you see? This pinkish blue area is basically the extracellular mucin. And what you are seeing here in these round blobs, these round blobs are basically the tumor cells or the tumor islands which are suspended into this extracellular mucin. Tubular carcinoma. This is a rare type of tumor. 2% of all the breast carcinomas usually occur in late 40s. These are multifocal or bilateral. Morphologically, they consist of well-formed tubules. Myoepithelial cell layer is absent, and tumor cells are in direct contact with the stroma. But it has got excellent prognosis. So that's why when you are seeing this kind of tumor, the best prognosis in all the cases of breast carcinoma, the best prognosis is that of a tubular carcinoma. This is how a tubular carcinoma looks like. There can be seen bilayering, but the bilayers is not formed by the myoepithelial cells. These are all glandular cells only. Possibly, most of the times, they are having a single lining, but sometimes multi-layering can be seen in this also. There is a large amount of desmoplastic stroma surrounding these nests. Now breast pain. Usually we have seen it is associated with benign disease. But as I have already told you, in case of inflammatory breast carcinoma, carcinoma incuraceae, there will be breast pain. Now the diagnosis, self-breast examination is the best way to diagnose breast cancer. 30% of the cases are discovered by the patient herself. Clinical manifestations are basically, first one is a lump. There can be nipple changes like retraction, discharge. There will be breast enlargement. There can be skin ulceration, edema, erythema, axillary mass or discomfort. So what you are seeing here, can you see this area? There can be a lump which is visible in the breast. Now what you see here is the retraction. Can you see this area of the areola has gone inside with the nipple. So this is basically the nipple retraction. Now what you are seeing here is the early changes of skin ulceration. So there is a little of edema, there is a little of erythema, but still the ulceration has not occurred, and again there is a nipple retraction. What you are seeing here, again there is a nipple retraction and the ulceration has started happening. There is a large area of erythema surrounding this area. Now what you are seeing here, there is a large lump and it is present with a large area of raw surface. That means the ulceration is prominent in this. Now this is again or tumor which has basically involved the whole of the breast with large areas of erythema and ulceration. History, physical breast examination is the best way to diagnose breast carcinoma. Then there are ancillary workups. So the tests that can examine the breasts are used to detect or find and diagnose the breast cancer. First one is the second one is the biopsy. Now the biopsy includes the fine needle core aspiration also. That means FNAC is the needle biopsy, then there is needle core biopsy, then there comes the incisional biopsy where a small area of wedge biopsy you can take and examine under microscope. Then the last one comes the excisional biopsy, in which you take out the whole lump and then finally process it for microscopic examination. When we have done all these, then we can check for estrogen and progesterone receptor over them by IHC. So mammography, basically there are two types of mammography, mediolateral oblique and craniocaudal views. This is how the oblique mammography happens. This is how we say craniocaudal views. So this is how solid mass with or without stellate features, thickening, clustered calcifications, streaking, fine stipple calcium in and around a lesion is noticed in the mammography. So what you see here, can you see? This is a well-defined area, smooth borders. Now, this is a much better view of a carcinoma breast. IDC, can you see this? Having a creepy appearance or the crab-like appearance. The borders are not smooth, they are spiculated. Now what you are seeing here is a well-defined round area. Again, there are kind of creeps which are radiating from the main mass. Again, can you see this area? Small striations that are coming out from this. So screening mammography is not recommended for less than 40 years of age. Why? Because there is large breast density. So what you are seeing here, can you see this area is white. These areas are larger and these are known as the breast density, and it is high in cases the female is less than 40 years of age, and therefore there are high risk or such chances of high false positivity. Less carcinoma also in young, until and unless it is a case of familial breast carcinoma, in which case you have to do the screening starting from an earlier age. Screening guidelines, baseline mammography is between 40 to 49 years of age and the annual mammogram after 50 years of age. Now let's talk about a few developmental anomalies. So there are milk line remnants. There can be accessory nipple tissue, there can be accessory breast tissue. So usually accessory breast tissue is encountered within the axillary area. So sometimes we are not sure whether this axillary tissue is basically the only fat or the breast tissue. Sometimes on aspiration you can have the normal glandular tissue from this area, and sometimes it is possible that the main breast is uninvolved, but these accessory breast tissues are having infiltrating ductal carcinoma within them. Then comes the nipple inversion. It is basically an anomaly, developmental. Some people have inverted nipples. Then there is macromastia, large breasts. Inflammation. Inflammation, the common is the acute inflammatory changes, which is known as acute mastitis. Staphylococci is the most common organism causing it. Then there is periductal inflammation. Periductal inflammation is usually not acute type, is mostly of the chronic types and having lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate. Then there is duct ectasia, that means dilatation of duct with filling of all the material within them. Then there is fat necrosis, usually occurs due to the trauma. You must have already read and learned about it, fat necrosis, in the early lectures about necrosis, which is a specific type of necrosis. So it is seen in breast. Then the lymphocytic type of inflammation or the lymphocytic mastitis, it is commonly seen in diabetes. Then there is a granulomatous mastitis, which can be seen in sarcoid, tuberculosis, but most of the cases it is idiopathic. So this is how acute mastitis looks like. Can you see this reddish area? So this reddish area, which is far left from the nipple, is basically acute mastitis. It is painful. It is having all the signs of inflammation: rubor, calor, dolor, pallor, and functional essay. Okay. So this is how microscopically acute mastitis looks like. These ducts are basically containing polymorphous debris. So what you are seeing here is these are macrophages and these small lobulated cells are the polymorphs. So these are basically seen within the ducts. Now what you are seeing here is the periductal inflammation. Can you see this blue area which is surrounding the duct? These ducts are basically having apocrine changes. That's why they are looking more blue. But the bluest area is this. How do we discern blue areas and pink areas? The cells which are having high NC ratio, which are having less of cytoplasm will look more blue in the histopathology slides. And we all know that the lymphocytes are having very less amount of cytoplasm. And that's why when you see such areas in the appendix, in the ileum, in the inflammatory areas of the breast, so these are lymphocytes. Now lymphocytic mastitis, which is typicality of diabetic mastopathy. What you are seeing here are intraepithelial lymphocytes. Can you see? There will be presence of peripheral lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate, but along with this peripheral presence, there will be intraepithelial lymphocytes also. So these lymphocytes are basically present within the acini. What you see here, we all know the pale, large areas are basically the granulomas. So granulomatous mastitis. We already know it could be commonly due to TB or it could be due to sarcoid. But in cases of breast, we would more probably look for other immunologic reasons or so-called idiopathic reasons rather than naming it. Until unless we find a ZN stain positive bacilli within these. So the gross specimen that you should be knowing after this lecture would be that of breast carcinoma and fibroadenoma. And the histopathology slides that would be asked in your exam would be about fibroadenoma, both type, intracanalicular and pericanalicular carcinoma breast, invasive ductal carcinoma, carcinoma breast, invasive lobular carcinoma, and phyllodes tumor. References, Cotton Kumar Robbins textbook, Harsh Mohan textbook, pick credits from various internet sources. Basically, the microscopic views are taken from Ackermans. Sorry, I did not mention over here. Thank you so much for your patient listening.